to IGN Live at E3 2013. Now, this is normally where I'd plug one of IGN's many E3 promos, but instead, I'm just going to stare and smile at you for a second. Alrighty, coming up now is a return to an awesome PC franchise from the past. Ubisoft is giving a next-gen reboot to Thief. So let's check it. Let's have a look.
Thanks, Naomi. We are going to get a good look at Thief right now. Daniel was kind enough to bring the game by the IGN booth here at
My pleasure,
E3
man. My pleasure.
2013. Very excited to see this. You said this is a late game demo that we're looking at today. Is that correct?
Exactly. It's a few hours into the game.
Okay.
It takes place in a narrative pivot in the game, really where things kind of shift around. This means there's a lot of people around, and you're kind of taking the opportunity to infiltrate a mansion while there's a lot of things going on. There's a revolt in the city, and they're kind of tired of this Baron with his iron-fisted regime, so they're kind of setting the city on fire. So you as the player kind of take this opportunity to kind of slip through the cracks and trying to steal a precious family heirloom that belongs to the Baron called the Heart of the Lion.
So the thief, is he more of like a Robin Hood type thief, like steal from the rich?
So maybe in the player's mind if they want so.
Okay.
I think he doesn't really discriminate. For him, it's like he's an anti-hero, so he'll steal anything that's worth anything. And the moral will leave up to the player whether or not you want to steal from somebody who's poor or you want to steal from the rich. Naturally, it's better business sense to steal from the rich.
Sure.
In this case, he's stealing from the richest man that's currently in the city.
Can you steal from anyone in the game?
So there are loot everywhere. So most people have, they have pockets, so on, you can pickpocket and so on. One thing that's very peculiar about this game is staying concealed, because you want to steal things, you need to stay out of sight. So for us, from the original French Thief series, the light gem was very important, and we still have it. It's in the bottom left corner. Right now you see it's very dark. And when you go into the light, it goes bright, and you can see that you're in a light. You also have this, around the edges, you have the silhouette, like the border frame, which shows you're concealed from you. And this is very important for how the guards can see you or not. So the game is all about how do you stay in the shadows, work from the shadows, and hit and run kind of thing, if it's just pickpocketing and stealing. So you have to pick your battles of how you want to collect.
And we should point out, Thief has been announced for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and high-end PCs, correct?
So you're seeing here is the PS4 version.
Just watching the PS4 version.
It's announced for high-end PCs, PS4 and Xbox One. And it's going to be released in 2014.
Next year. It obviously looks very nice.
This is, of course, a working progress build,
Sure.
so it's not, the quality doesn't represent the final quality.
But it already looks really good.
I think the guys did a really great job. So what you see here is also, you saw the focus. The focus is ability, like a distorted view, like a blue, like a gray tinted, like a perspective. And what's important with this is something that's completely optional to the game. You can disable it completely from the menu before playing the game at all. So it's not mandatory. But it does give certain players, if they want to, have an ace card. When everything falls apart, you have that to fall back on. And that way you can, for the example you just saw here, you can use it to scout where are the enemies, where are the opportunities, what is interactive. So it gives a small hint of what you can do in this area.
So how can we tell our objective, where we need to get to?
So for more, let's call it old school players, they want to just go with it. They just want to go with the narrative drive. What am I doing here? They will really get into the story. So you don't see any icons here over the guards. You don't see objective markers, the whole thing. That's because it's optional.
Okay.
By default, depending on difficulty, it might be on. So you see an icon somewhere in the, that's where you need to go. And you see icons over the AI where it says, okay, these are in calm state or more aggressive state. But in this particular running here, we'll just disable all of it, just to show that you don't have to have it on. So what you also saw here was a small dash. The dash is like a small, we call it the swoop, which enables you to traverse small spaces, sideways, backways, to really get around guards, manipulate them, jump from shadow to shadow. Really gets a lot of maneuverability. It also has a lot of tools about what tools do you bring and how do you use it. In this case, you see the fire arrow. In this case, we can torch these guys up. It's standing in a flammable liquid, naturally. We're going to torch these guys up. I think we're just going to go with a more stealthy approach.
Chose not to.
Yeah, we chose not. It is a stealth game, but you can play it very aggressively.
Okay.
Because if we had, set fire on these guys, you would still have done it from the shadow. They wouldn't know where you were, and they would have to start finding you.
Right.
So still, even though you can play very aggressively, it's still a stealth approach. approach you have to. You just run into the light, you're not going to last very long.
So we're collecting a lot of money here. Will we get a chance to spend that?
Well, that's what money is for. But
right.
also remember, it's a lot about like the glory of how good are you?
Okay.
Like that's kind of the challenge. How do you get all the loot? How are you better than other players? That kind of thing. Is there a way of there's a way of measuring yourself how good you are at this as well? I know there's kind of a reward in picking the pockets of all the guards. So when you leave the area, none of them had any money left. It's just had the satisfaction of just doing that.
You robbed them all blind.
Sorry?
You robbed them all blind.
Exactly. That has a different, completely different kind of reward for players. So you saw he turned off the water inside the little room here. Mm-hmm. It's enabled him to now. Used to be a water fountain here, or a waterfall, and now it's gone. So using this, he can now climb up here without making any sound, since surfaces make a very big difference in how he progresses. And also you have to look for environmental interactions to also modify the benefits that you have. And here you can also use focus, if you have it enabled, of course, to see approximately what you have to be aware of. We're not giving you a lot of information, just enough for you to kind of feel where you have to be careful. And being a stealth game is also very important to have a lot of tricks, a lot of like exploration, clues, what are you going to do, especially for the people who don't want navigation markers and so on. What you also saw here, if you want to speed things up in terms of pickpocketing, you can use your focus pickpocket to just spend a resource to do it faster. But it does have a cost. And both health and your focus resource do not auto-regenerate. So you kind of have to find consumables to replenish it if you really want to. For example, this poppy here. Picking flowers is always a pretty thing, right?
Sure. Don't you use the flowers to replenish your focus?
Exactly. Okay. And then you can find health pickups that are more towards your, or the food pickups that are more towards the regaining health if you lost health during combat or something similar. So we have a combat system. Some people have seen in the previous IGN, we have this focus combat and we have the combat, and they're two different things. Okay. Sometimes people are confused with the intermixed one, but they're very separate ones. There's a base combat with just fighting back and forth. So
it's pretty bright out here in this courtyard.
So you have to remember what you're seeing is from like the player's perspective, and he's a very good night vision. So sometimes you see more than you think the guards would actually see. And here, if you had run on stonework, they would have heard you run. But since we were running on grass, now you can just run across the patch without. So now they kind of saw something at the edge of their the peripheral. They're like, "Was something there?"
What are you using to put out the fires?
So, code name we had some other names for it, dry eyes and other things. Oh, by the way, we have a next gen dog too.
Excellent. Take that, Ghost.
So we tried some different names, but again, water arrow was just just couldn't get away from it. It was just something we had to do. We had to keep. So you can create your own path, but if you do it too close to enemies, they will react to it. So right now we have the alert icons activated. Those can be disabled if you don't want them. Just give a state of you need to be careful in this area because they're looking for you. They're going to go and look in closets. They're going to look all the possible places you can be. So it is a kind of a multipath game. It is a multipath game. This is another path you could have taken that we're going to do now. So there are different geographical ways of accessing the manor.
Who left their gold in the bird's nest, or did the bird steal
the bird
gold?
circuit. It's a bird circuit. Exploration. It's a mockingbird, I believe. Stole it. So you gotta look around. We want a little story around the loot. How did it get there? Did they have a party and they dropped a chalice somewhere? So there's a lot of loot, and you're not even remotely close to picking all of them in this one. But there's a lot of loot everywhere, and you just have to kind of be creative and kind of find out the crooks and nannies to really find the loot ones.
It seems like there's a lot of verticality in the level.
There's a lot of verticality, but it's also a lot about getting close to the guy if you want to pickpocket them and so on. So there's a lot of different things that really make it a lot of different from other games, right? We don't want to make too much verticality. We don't want it to be too flat on the ground. We want a good combination of if you find that verticality, it really empowers the player. Of course, we also have the lockpick. The lockpick is essential for a thief game, right?
Sure.
And here you're trying to align the tumblers inside. If you wanted to speed it up, you can do the focus lockpick, which costs a little resource, but it will speed up the process and it will you know, if you have guards behind you and you just want to speed it up, that's
Right.
that's kind of what your fallback strategy is. So we made it into the manor, and we survived, and that's awesome.
Is that the end of that level, or?
No, the level is a lot bigger, but for now, this is what we're showing, and I think it shows the core essence of the DNA of Thief is still very much there. Very focused on a stealth, and again, you could play this level in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
This was kind of a mixed things, but if you want to go completely ghost, that's you could do that, or you want to do completely aggressive from the shadows, that's also an option.
I know it's early, but it's already looking very good. I'm excited for it. Yeah. Thanks a lot for bringing it by today, Daniel.
Thanks.
Thief will be out for high-end PCs, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One next year. Back to you, Naomi.
Thanks for the demo, Damon. So, did Thief just steal your heart away? I don't know, definitely stole mine. Be sure to vote for your game of show at go.ign.com/E3 People's Choice. We'll reveal the winner on Thursday, and speaking of hopeful winners, our next game is the sequel to the critically acclaimed Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2 is next.